Your life right now is a product, for the most part, of your habits. And your habits, well, those are a product of where you're disciplined or where you're not disciplined. I'm tburrier from tburrier.com, and I'm going to take just a few minutes here to give you 7 simple steps that you can follow to become self disciplined if, in fact, this is an issue for you. I know it was an issue for me. I say the first half of my life, but I'm older now. I'm old enough now that it's not exactly the first half of my life, but really the first 28 years of my life. And my results were not good. I mean, they were just not good in any area of my life that mattered. And really, it's very simple to look at because I could point back and go, it's because I had no discipline at all. I literally had zero self discipline. And I had to teach myself the habits um, through self discipline to become a highly self disciplined person. And it changed everything over the years. And so I'm going to give you a little recipe here. It's not complex, but I will tell you, you can't skip a step. If you skip a step, it's not going to work. But they're not hard steps, and that's the whole point. Discipline is really about doing little things over and over and over and over until they become habitual. And if you're habitually doing something that is positive, then you're going to end up getting big positive results over time. So here are the 7 steps. Number 1 is you got to get clear about why something matters to you. And so this is pretty simple when you boil it down. We as human beings, we're either going to avoid stuff that hurts, or we're going to run to stuff that we love. And unfortunately, we're more likely to avoid stuff that hurts first. And so you have to look deeply and go, okay, what has my lack of discipline been costing me that I care about, like deeply care about, right? So you want to get clear on why that's not acceptable. But then you go to the other side and say, what would my life look like and why do I care about that? And this is where you're going to get a little deeper, right? You're going to get a little deeper about how that affects all aspects of your life, how it's going to affect the human being you are, the people that you love. And so it should get pretty deep to the point where it's like, okay, it's really not optional. If you get deep enough into a why, the hows always come anyway, but you get to a place where it's not optional to do the thing. So first thing you have to do is get clear on why it matters to you to become disciplined and make the changes that you want to make. Second thing you have to do is get clear on what your priorities are. Now, it's pretty simple for me. Anybody who follows me or listens to me on any regular basis knows that I follow 3 circles living, right? My primary priorities are first health, which is both physical and mental. Second is relationships, starting with the people that I love. And then third is career and serving and purpose and the things that come with that, right? And that's evolved over the years because it can when you do it right. And so you have to get clear on what your priorities are. And when you do this, it might shake you up a little because you might find that herein lies one area for you that's been a struggle, because you're going to tend to find the things that truly you believe are your priorities are not necessarily the things that are consuming your time, which is fine because you can fix that. That's fixable. So the second thing is you got to get clear on what your priorities are. And then the third thing you have to do is you've got to visualize what you want your life to look like in those areas, in those things that are most important to you, because that's where the discipline is going to come in. And that, I would venture to guess, are going to be the areas that you're upset with, that you're looking at and go, this just isn't, my career just isn't where it needs to be. My health is just not where it needs to be. My relationships just aren't where they need to be, or whatever it is for you, right? And so you visualize what you want it to look like. And then you put a little meat to that bone by getting some goals in that area. And they can be relatively aggressive because it's not going to be about the aggression of that goal in the long run at the beginning. But you want to create some goals because you can't create steps unless you know where you're trying to go, right? So the third thing is visualize what you want it to look like and then attach some measure of a goal around that, right? Using the concept of it needs to be specific, measurable, achievable, attainable, reasonable, and within some timeline. The fourth thing is get clarity on your steps. Everything can be broken down to a series of steps. Everything has a process. Everything. That's the beautiful thing about life, is practically anything there is that you want to accomplish has a very simple fundamental process to it. The challenge is we as human beings are so bombarded with marketing. We're so bombarded with things that prey on our emotions and our desire to have things be easier or faster. We lose sight of that. And we get caught in all these other things and we lose hope because those things never work. You can't shortcut processes that matter. You can't shortcut fundamentals. And so you can break it down to get to what those steps are. And they can be little steps, not to be huge things, right? You can change your life in 15 minutes a day in any direction. Take it from a guy who did in every direction using that philosophy, right? So I'm giving you what works, and then it's up to you to work it. So then you can create the simple steps that you can take. And then step 5 is you commit to those steps. And again, if you're starting in a situation where your life is kind of chaotic and really out of control because you haven't been doing this kind of stuff, it's not going to change overnight. However, just by carving out a little bit, again, maybe it's 10 minutes, maybe it's 15 minutes in the thing, right? Just by doing that and then committing to it, because that why and those priorities show you it's really not optional. It's just a matter of when you decide. And so if you're watching this and saying, yes, I'm going to do it now, then you've decided you're going to do it now. It's no longer, and life is short, right? How long are you going to wait to fix the stuff you don't like? How long are you going to wait to live the life you want to live? And so you then commit to those steps daily by saying those steps are not optional because of why it matters, right? That's the connection there. But again, they're just little steps. They're not anything grandiose. You're not going to change it overnight. But man, you'd be shocked at how relatively fast things can begin to change when you begin to discipline small steps that lead to the right kinds of habits in the areas that matter. Then number 6 is acknowledge the daily wins. This is such an important thing. The third thing I said was visualize what you want it to look like, set the bigger goals. But I don't want you to look at those goals every day. I don't want you to think about those goals every day. I want you to think about the step, just the step, because just the step, right? If you want to walk 100 miles, if you're thinking about walking 100 miles, it's going to be brutal. But if you just think about walking each step that you take, and that's the step you focus on, eventually you'd walk 100 miles. You might not want to, but that's how it works. You don't want to focus on the big picture daily. You want to revisit it every now and then, but focusing on the big picture daily, right, is going to remind you how far you are away from it as opposed to how far you've come. And so when you just commit to the steps daily and then you acknowledge that you did those steps, you can feel the accomplishment, right, and get the reward internally for having done the little discipline that matters and is making progress, even though at the beginning, right, in the short window, that progress is not so noticeable. And you can always think about maybe an exercise program as a great example. Your first few weeks, you don't really see very much. It's happening, but you don't see it, right? And then you begin to see a little more and a little more and a little more. It's the same in every part of your life. It's the discipline of the doing every day that is what leads to the bigger picture, what leads to that great picture in the long run. So you acknowledge your daily wins. You give yourself credit for having done it. You say, well done, and we're going to jump back on it again tomorrow because we proved we can do it. And then number 7 is reward the benchmarks. So you know what the big picture looks like, which means you're going to break it down, right? Your steps are broken down because everything is a process. You're focusing on the daily wins. You're committing to the daily steps. That's the process. You're focusing on the process, not the results. Because if you focus on the process and do it all the time, the result will come. That's how life works. Everything works that way. And so if you say, okay, now I should be making some measure of progress in some point in time. So maybe you check your benchmarks every 2 months or every month or every 3 months or whatever. But you create benchmarks at a point in time, and then you look at the progress that you have made, and you can celebrate and reward that. You don't want to just reward your daily steps. You want to give yourself credit for those and acknowledge those and celebrate that you did them, but you don't want to make a big celebration for doing the things you should do. You're habitualizing them because you're going to get to a point where you don't have to think about it, right? The things that I do that have led to a really cool life, I don't even have to think about them. They are habits. They're all habits now, right? And they've been habits for many, many years. I have to still plan to fit it all in, but they're just habits, right? They're not optional. You just do them and it continues to bring fruit. So you want to reward your benchmarks, and that's where you take a moment and go, This is awesome. I'm making progress. I can see it coming. I can see that the life that I want in front of me, and you're experiencing in those benchmarks the true result of staying self-disciplined. And you will build your self-discipline muscles to a point where there's nothing you won't be able to do if you truly care to. That's the big win. That's the absolute big win. So I hope that this was helpful, and you will take it to heart and do it. If you need some coaching, feel free to reach out to me. If you have not read Three Circles Living yet, I highly suggest it. It will help you in at least these areas of priority, but it also gives you a lot of a blueprint for how to what to work on to excel in the areas that matter to you in your life. All right, thanks for stopping by. Hope you have a great day. Bye.